and for other wildlife in the area. We do that through land acquisition and management, through education, and through advocacy. So that could mean anything from we're out there restoring prairies to we are providing environmental education opportunities for youth and for adults, and we're monitoring birds through citizen science programs. So we do a range of different things in this 10-county area, and we also have a lot of volunteer opportunities. So if you're interested in learning more about what our organization does, or you're looking for a way that you can volunteer to help protect some birds, you can visit our website at madisonaudubon.org to learn more about those options. We have some very cool sanctuary properties in this region as well that are really great places to go birding. So you'll hear a little bit more about some of those destinations later too. So I was really excited that the Middleton Public Library was interested in having a presentation on fall and winter birding. This is my favorite time of year to go birding. And I think some people are surprised by that because they think, oh man, it's getting cold. Like all the birds fly south for the winter. Like what is there to see? But that's actually really kind of a misconception. Fall and winter are a magnificent time to be looking at birds. Fall migration brings a lot of new birds to our area. And in the winter, we get birds that migrate south from way up in the Arctic regions. So when they travel south, we are in Wisconsin are their south. And those can be some really cool birds to see. So we'll talk about what they are pretty soon. My goal for this presentation tonight is to basically give you an idea of the huge variety that you're able to see in our area. And so the first part of my presentation, I'm basically going to overview a huge array of birds that you can see during this time of year in places you might find them. I'm also going to talk a little bit about how to get started with birding if this is a hobby that you're interested in learning more about. And then I have a list of really great destinations in our area that you can go to start your birding adventures. The last 15 minutes of the presentation will be questions for you. So if you have questions, feel free to type them in the comment box that you can find on the Zoom program. I'll be able to see your questions as they come in, but we'll probably keep most of the questions till the end. But if you think of one and you want to toss it in there, feel free to go ahead and do that anytime that it pops in your mind. So before we jump straight into the birds, I wanted to talk a little bit more about where we are in the birding season. So if you're not familiar with how bird migration works, throughout the year we have like this ebb and flow of birds that are coming through our area, birds that might be staying here, and birds that might be leaving. So I put this comic on here that I found that I think it's pretty funny. Again, it gives a good idea of how the year goes. In spring migration, we have birds that they're on their way to their breeding grounds where they want to attract a mate. They're doing lots of singing. They're very colorful. That's the elegant songbird spring that you see in the comic here. In June, July, and August, we get into breeding and nesting season. Things have quieted down a bit, but there's a lot of cool activity. Like you'll see fledglings that are being born, very busy, active parents that are feeding young. So summer is a fun time to see all those like subtle treasures. Fall brings massive amounts of migration of waterfowl, of different types of raptors, very cool birds that are coming through in fall. And then winter, winter gets this unique label of weird duck time, which is surprisingly accurate. We get some very strange looking ducks that will come through in the winter that in the Madison area you can find on open water that we'll have basically until the lakes freeze over. And there's a lot more out there than mallards. So we'll look at some of those crazy looking ducks soon. But just to give you an idea, we're at the tail end of fall migration right now. So we've had a lot of birds coming in, and we still have a lot more to come, particularly on the waterfowl front. So moving on, this first section, I'm basically going to cover all the different types of waterfowl that you might see. After we talk about waterfowl, we'll then move on and talk about basically everything else. But I wanted to give you an overview of some of the different types of waterfowl you'll find. Geese, I know you guys are all familiar with Canada geese. They may not seem exciting, but now is the time of year to be looking for destinations where you might see them flock in like hundreds and hundreds or thousands of geese at a time. That can be a really almost like moving experience to be around just that sheer number of birds and watch them as they prepare for migration. And mixed in with all those Canada geese are likely to be some other geese species that you might not have seen before or you might not be familiar with. That includes the greater white-fronted geese, which are nicknamed speckle bellies. They have that black barring on their belly that is pretty unique. And then snow geese that you might see mixed in with those massive, massive flocks of Canada. So if you're out at a spot where you're seeing geese in these huge, huge, huge numbers, it can kind of be a fun little scavenger hunt to see if there's anything out there that's not a Canada goose, because chances are there might be. This is also a fantastic time of year to be looking out for swans. In our area, we will get both tundra swans and trumpeter swans. Late November is usually when they start arriving. So you'll see them late November into December. They'll stick around through the beginning of next year. And basically, if there is any open water in the area, they'll be here hanging out on it. Tundra swans and trumpeter swans are very hard to distinguish. They look very, very similar. And unless you have one of each sitting right next to each other, it's almost impossible sometimes to tell the difference. I've put some field marks on here that you can kind of use as a judge, but you can kind of rest assured that if you see a large flock of swans, whether they're out on the lake, whether they're out hanging out on some ice, even flying above you in a huge, huge group, they're probably tundra swans. Most of the swans that we get in our area in big numbers are going to be tundra swans. We'll get trumpeter swans, but they might be maybe like a single family of trumpeters coming through, or one or two mixed into a larger flock of tundra swans. If you think you are hearing a trumpeter swan, you'll probably recognize it purely on its call alone, because they really do sound like trumpets. So they're very true to their name, whereas tundra swans have a different call that's kind of high pitched. It's this quavering, like hoo, hoo, hoo call, which sounds very different from that kind of bugle sound that you would get for a trumpeter swan. So these guys, I know some swans have already been seen in the area. I know that there are already a bunch of tundra swans up at Goose Pond Sanctuary, which is one of Madison Audubon's sanctuary sites. Pretty soon, we're going to be seeing more of them, especially on Lake Mendota. They like to gather on University Bay near the UW campus. So keep your eyes peeled for them because they'll be coming through soon. Up next, on my next slide, I'm not going to talk about all these different types of duck species, but I wanted to give you a visual of the wide variety of ducks that you can find. When I started birding, I didn't think a whole lot about ducks. They didn't interest me because I was like, oh, I've seen mallards. I see mallards all the time. They're just mallards. They're cool, but they weren't exciting. But then I went to a few destinations where I got to see more than just mallards. I got to see a lot of these really, really cool looking birds, including some of my personal favorites, buffleheads. That's these guys down here. They're super tiny. They're very small in comparison to your other ducks. And they have this almost like metallic-y kind of sheen that's like this iridescent purple green on their head. And they're adorable. And then you get birds like northern shovelers that have this like really huge, fat, flat kind of bill that looks almost comical when you see it in person. There's two different categories of ducks that you might notice when you're looking at them out on the water that can almost help you identify what you might be seeing. There's dabbling ducks, which are ducks that will feed by tipping forward in the water. So just their butt is kind of up in the air. And then there's diving ducks that will dive literally below the surface of the water as they're searching for food. The first set of ducks you see here, up through the teal all the way through the northern shoveler, are all dabbling ducks, and everything else on this screen is a diving duck. This is only a small portion of the ducks that you can find, though. So I really encourage you to go out and to start looking for waterfowl, because you'll be just amazed at everything that's out there that is not a mallard. Mixed in with the rest of those ducks are some more ducks that don't look like ducks at all. So you're probably going to see some merganser species. There's hooded mergansers, red-breasted mergansers, and common mergansers that I have in this photo here. They're a type of diving fish-eating duck that have these very long, thin bills that have serrated edges on them that help them grip slippery fish. So they're very fun to watch. They're excellent divers, but they have a bit different body structure than your average duck, but they're still a duck. However, mixed into the rafts of ducks that you might find are some duck-like birds that are not ducks at all, but they often get confused for ducks. Those would be your American coots, grebes, and loons. So coots and grebes lack the webbed feet that ducks have, and their feet are placed at a different spot on their body. Loons do have webbed feet, but their feet are placed really far back on their body, so they're not able to walk on land like ducks are. These three species are all birds that you might see when you're out looking for waterfowl, but they're you can notice by the shape of their bills that they're definitely not duck-like with their bills, but they're not mergansers either. Loons have that very strong dagger-like bill, and grebes have, pied-bill grebes in particular, have like a very kind of short, stubby bill with a ring around it. They're one of my favorite birds to see because they can control the amount of air that they have in their feathers. So instead of flying off the water when they get startled, they'll just sink below the water like a little submarine until just their head is visible, or sometimes they'll go entirely below, and then they'll raise back up when they think the threat is gone. So if you see a bird that doesn't flush when everything else flushes, and it just sinks below the surface, that's probably a type of grebe. That was a very quick overview of a lot of the waterfowl that you can expect to find when you go out looking for water birds. There's a lot that I didn't put in there as well, but I do want to give us time to talk about everything else that you might find this winter season, because there's a lot more coming. So winter brings us some very cool raptor species that you might see flying very high above you. One of my favorite things to do in the winter, especially when it's cold and I maybe don't want to be outside birding, I might drive around out in the country and just drive some country roads, see what's out there, and chances are you're going to see one of, if not more, of these birds. So on here we have American kestrels, red-tailed hawks, which you can see any time of year, rough-legged hawks, which are a winter hawk that we get, bald eagles, and then northern harriers. If you want to see eagles in the winter, I really recommend that you head up to Prairie du Sac. Anywhere along that stretch of the lower Wisconsin Riverway, there are tons of eagles that come and they feed on fish in the river there where the water doesn't freeze over. And you can see so many of them. That's kind of a big gathering spot for them in the winter, particularly in December and January. So that's a great spot to go. If you are out driving, let's say you're driving around, maybe you're on your way to a destination or you're just out in the country, you might notice a bird that is hovering in midair, and it's not flying anywhere, it's just hovering just in the same spot, almost like it might not even look like it's moving. It's just purely just hovering in the air, looking down at something. That could be two birds that we have on the screen here. That could be an American kestrel. So if it's very small, kestrels are our smallest falcon, and you can kind of see by the picture here how small they are compared to that little mouth that it has. It could be a kestrel. They use that hovering behavior as they're looking for prey. They'll hover in the air before they dive straight down to grab their prey. Or it could be, if it's a larger bird that's more hawk-like in size, it could be a rough-legged hawk, which is one of those hawks that comes our way from the Arctic regions. They're very cool birds, and if you get a chance to see them perched, whether they're on a telephone pole or a nearby tree, you'll notice that they have feathers that go all the way down to their feet. Whereas red-tailed hawks will have just like their regular old like bird legs. Rough-legged hawks looks like they're wearing pants all the way down to their toes. Everything about their body is designed for life up in a very, very cold region. So we'll get them this time of year as well. If you see a bird that is swooping very low over farm fields, it could potentially be a northern harrier. They're raptors that you can find a lot in agricultural areas, as they like to hunt for voles and creatures that are out in the fields. And they have a very owl-like face. You can see this kind of circular facial disc that they have that helps them hear their prey below them. So fantastic hearing and very owl-like in their behavior. Speaking of owls, winter is my absolute favorite time to see owls. The three owls that you see in the bottom of the presentation here, the barred owl, the great horned owl, and the eastern screech owl, are species that you can find in our region year-round. We have all three of those species, no matter the time of year. However, winter is such a good time to be looking for them because there's less leaf cover. You go out in the woods and you have such a better chance of actually spotting them perched on a branch when there's not a lot of leaves to obscure your view. And a lot of these owls will begin their mating process in winter. So like in a December and January, you might hear them making a lot more noise than they normally do during the rest of the year. Great horned owls in particular will have a duet that they perform in a mated pair. So you might hear that during the winter time as well. The other two owls that I have up here, the short-eared owl and the snowy owl, are owls that we only get in winter. Snowy owls, oh boy, they are they're so amazing, and I really hope that you're all able to see one this year. They are a bird that we sometimes don't see each winter. It really depends on what their food source looks like up in the northern regions, on whether or not they'll choose to travel this far south in search of food. But I have a feeling that this year is going to be a good year for us to see snowy owls, because there's a lot of winter bird species that have been traveling further south than normal. So if you're looking for a snowy owl, you should be out driving the country. Choose some country roads out near agricultural areas. They'll perch on telephone wires, they'll perch on hay bales, they'll perch on agricultural equipment, they'll perch out in the middle of a field. They can blend in really well when there's snow on the ground, but I guarantee that your searching efforts will be worth it should you find one. Short-eared owls are another owl species that tend to hunt over agricultural land. They're very active at dawn and at dusk in particular. You'll rarely see them like in the middle of the day. They are unique in that they have a very small body and compared to their very, very long wingspan. The Madison area, actually, it's more of the Belleville area, down by Brooklyn Wildlife Area, for some reason tends to attract a lot of short-eared owls. So spending time down near Brooklyn Wildlife Area at dawn or at dusk might turn up a short-eared owl. If you choose to go birding out in the woods and are tramping around through the snow, which I highly recommend, chances are you're going to see a lot of woodpeckers. We have a lot of woodpecker species that will stay here all winter long. I've put an array of them on the slide here. And you might also see nuthatches, which sometimes people think are a type of woodpecker, but they're not. They don't drum into the sides of trees. like woodpeckers will, but they will forage for seeds and things along the tree bark. So both nuthatches, white-breasted nuthatches, red-breasted nuthatches, and then brown creepers, which are not a nuthatch but are kind of related, will all be found climbing on tree bark. Nuthatches can climb up tree bark and down tree bark and around it, and they'll hang off the tree in various directions. They're very, very acrobatic. Brown creepers, one of my absolute favorite birds, just because they're so well camouflaged, and they can feel very challenging to find, but very rewarding when you do. They will climb up a tree. So they'll start at the base of a tree and they'll work their way up as they climb around it. And then they'll fly to the bottom of the next tree and they'll work their way up. And so if you see something that keeps flying to the bottom of a tree and you're like, oh, what was that? Watch the tree very carefully, as you might see a small, very tiny bird circling its way around it. That'd be a brown creeper. There's also some other birds that you might spot if you're out birding, some of these you might find in your backyard, but some of these you'll find out just at natural areas that you're looking. We have pine siskins, dark-eyed juncos, American tree sparrows, ruby crown kinglets, and golden crown kinglets. But on this page, the bird that I think is the most fascinating is the northern shrike. If you're out somewhere where you have some wide open spaces, but maybe some let's say like an oak savanna where you have some large trees that overlook some open spaces, you should carefully scan the tops of those trees for a bird that might be perching up there. This is the songbird. It's a little smaller than a robin, but unlike robins and other songbirds, it's a carnivorous bird. So it will hunt sometimes other birds, as well as little creatures like mice and voles. You notice it has this sharp on its bill. It will attack those creatures, and then it will impale them on something that's sharp or pokey, whether it's barbed wire or whether it's a really pokey tree branch. It'll catch something, and then it will literally make its own larder of food that it stores and will eat throughout the season. So they're fascinating birds that, again, we only see in wintertime. This next slide, I put on some backyard birds that you probably already recognize. If you have feeders, you've probably seen a lot of these birds. They will be here all winter long, so you can still expect to see them. They, especially when they have food sources, you'll find that these birds stick around, even American robins. So don't be surprised if you see robins all winter. If they have water and a food source, many of them choose to stay instead of migrate. This year in particular is a really good year for winter finches. There is, right now is shaping up to be what is called an eruption year. And you can see that's spelled with an I. It's like finches are erupting out of the boreal forests of Canada into the United States. They're looking for food because the cone crop, or the pine cones that they eat on the pine cones that eat seeds from on the conifer trees up in the boreal forests of Canada have not been producing a lot of pine cones. So they don't have a lot of food up there, and they're traveling a lot further south than normal. This year is shaping up to be one of the largest eruption years for many of these species than we've seen in decades. So normally I wouldn't tell you to be looking out for evening grosbeaks at your feeders, but this is the one year that you should be really looking for evening grosbeaks at your feeders. They've already been seen in the counties that are just north of us and some in Dane County. So they're on their way, and they're very, very hungry. So you might see evening grosbeaks, purple finches, pine siskins, and common redpolls are all species that might show up at your feeders this winter that you might not see in an average year. The other type of bird you might want to be going on a destination to look for right now are sandhill cranes. I know we all see them around the Madison area, but this time of year in late November, they are gathering at roosting spots where they are preparing for migration. So in the evenings, you'll see hundreds and hundreds of them fly in to roost for the night. So they gather in these big staging areas. A lot of those staging areas are kind of near the lower Wisconsin Riverway. And there are even just out in cornfields in agricultural areas. Up at Goose Pond, there's a ton of them that come in every evening. So there's a lot of good places to go to see sandhill cranes before they leave us for the winter. So that's a lot of birds, and I went through those very quickly. So if you have questions on any of the species I mentioned, absolutely toss those in the comments there, and we'll talk about those at the end of the presentation. It's almost overwhelming to think of how many birds that we have, but I want you guys to see that there is so much variety out there. So if you're thinking like, man, I don't know if I really want to go birding this winter, you do, because there's a lot of really awesome birds that you can find. So how do you get started? And how do you even get ready to go birding? My first recommendation is finding a field guide. That's going to help you figure out what are you looking at, what might you expect to find in your area, and it's going to give you a sense of that variety around you. Choosing a guide that has Eastern in the title, which means east of the Rockies, it means that you are more likely to see only birds in that guide that you would expect to find in our area. I've shared a copy of this PDF with you guys, and you can see it in the group chat here. You can click on the links that I've included in here and get a bunch of information on different field guides and different resources. The other thing that you might need if you're planning on going birding is a pair of binoculars. There are some very affordable options for binoculars out there, especially if you're getting started. But even if you don't have them, there are some places that you can go where you can just experience like the huge numbers of birds that are out there. Like you can go to Horican Marsh or Goose Pond and have a phenomenal time, even if you don't have binoculars, simply because you'll be surrounded by thousands of birds. And that in itself is really cool. If you don't have binoculars and can't afford them right now, but you do have a camera that has a nice zoom lens on it, you can try birding with your camera and taking pictures of birds and seeing if you can ID them that way. When you're thinking about how to ID a bird, there are a couple things that you want to think about. Shape, color, size, and behavior are the primary things you want to look for. Shape is in particular is thinking about something like bill shape, like the shape of something's bill. That helps you narrow down a lot what type of bird you're looking at. So when you turn to your field guide, you'll have a better idea of how to narrow it down, because bill shape doesn't change. Color can change depending on the season. Some birds might be in breeding plumage, some birds might be in non-breeding plumage, and they might look very, very different. But the bill shape doesn't change. So if you, and usually their behavior doesn't change either. So if you see a bird that's doing something unusual, you should take note of what it's doing as well as what its bill looks like and its general shape. I also recommend, if you have something in your sights, don't immediately pull out your field guide and try and find what it is. Study that bird as much as you can before you turn away from it, because I guarantee the moment you take your eyes off it, it's going to be gone. So look at something as much as you can before you turn away and try and find what your field guide says it might be. Speaking of field guides, the next thing that I would recommend that you guys look into is getting a copy of the Merlin Bird ID app. This is a free app. You can use it on your phone. It helps you identify any bird that you might be looking at based on your location and what you might be finding this particular time of year. So it won't show you suggestions for birds that are in a different region. It won't show you suggestions for birds that you might not find in fall or winter. You put in some information about where you saw the bird, when you saw, what size it was, the 3 primary colors that you saw, and what the bird was doing, and it will give you, if not your exact bird, a list of possible birds. It's a super fast, super easy way to get an idea of what you might be looking at. There are also some resources that I have put together for new birders. Madison Audubon has an entryway to birding blog on our website. Full disclosure, I write this blog, but it is basically designed as kind of like to be a field guide for you. Let's say you are, with the pandemic right now, we haven't been able to have field trips. We haven't been able to take people out birding. There's so much you can learn about birding from having like a field trip leader explain a lot of that to you. The entryway to birding blog is like our virtual field trip leader, giving you the insider tips on how to bird and how to bird better. You can find suggestions about where to go, ID help, seasonal updates about stuff, anything and everything. I guarantee that I've covered it in some way on our blog. So I highly recommend that. eBird is another really great resource that you can use to find where birds are being seen in your area. If there's a particular bird you're looking for, eBird will tell you where people are finding it, so you know where to focus your search. There's also, if you're on Facebook, there are also some really cool Facebook groups that are useful for new birders. The American Birding Association has a page called What's This Bird, where you can post pictures that other people will help you identify. There's also Birding Wisconsin and Wild Birds of Wisconsin, which are specifically for Wisconsin birds, where people will often share information about great places to go and share birds that they're seeing in their area. The DNR also puts out a statewide birding report every couple of weeks that gives you an idea of what you might be seeing in your region. And it's a great way to see think about what you might be expecting this time of year. So I'm running a little behind schedule, but I'm going to zoom through some of these destinations. I've sorted these by county, by the way. So if you're thinking about making a day trip or something, some of these are places that you can visit all in one go. Up in Columbia County, there is Goose Pond Sanctuary, which is Madison Audubon's sanctuary site. We own this property, but it's free and it is open for the public to explore. Goose Pond is like a mecca for waterfowl. It brings in them by the thousands. Last year, I think last January or so, we had over 2,000 tundra swans out on Goose Pond. And I have no idea how they counted them all, but they did. But this is a place where if you want to see waterfowl in great numbers and in great variety, Goose Pond is a really good spot to go, especially late afternoon, early evening, as things are coming into roost for the night. You'll see them just fly in by the hundreds, and it's a really phenomenal experience. If you're up in Columbia County, a nearby destination that's just 15 minutes from Goose Pond is our other property. It's called Otsego Marsh. This is a beautiful marsh that's surrounded by some woods. So you can hike through the woods, you can enjoy the waterfowl on the marsh, and you can get this nice mix of habitat up at Otsego Marsh. Also nearby, within 10 minutes as well, is Schoenberg Waterfowl Production Area. This is a really great accessible destination. There is a paved path that meanders out to a boardwalk that has some scopes at the end. It's fully wheelchair accessible, so if you know someone that's looking for a place to go but is struggling to find a spot that's accessible, Schoenberg Waterfowl Production Area is a really cool destination where you can also see a ton of birds. It's only, I think, about half a mile out and half a mile back. So a mile total. So great for kids and for folks that are looking for a paved trail and boardwalk. Over in Jefferson County, you can find Fayetteville Grove Sanctuary, which is our other sanctuary site. Fayetteville has lots of prairies and oak savannas. There's marshland up there. There's tamarack swamps. It's this lovely mix of habitat that's also really great for birding. I see northern harriers up there all of the time, so it's a great spot to be looking for raptors too. Zalosky Marsh is also nearby, kind of near Lake Mills. This is a really great spot to go if you're looking for waterfowl. It's another spot that really draws them in. Over in Dodge County, Horicon Marsh is, you've probably heard of it before. It's super phenomenal destination. Like brings in hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of migrating birds. It is the largest freshwater cattail marsh in the U.S. and it is a critically important habitat for birds that are migrating through. So this is a good spot to go if you want to get a close look at birds. Along the auto tour route, you can see some great spots where you get right by the water and can see a lot of the dabbling ducks in particular. but there's also some much larger areas where you can just see like the sheer number of geese and other ducks that are flying through. Here in Dane County, I really struggle to think of just 3 places to put on here. We have so many amazing birding destinations right close to home. But you should for sure check out the UW Arboretum. In fall and winter, it's a fabulous place to walk through. You can see owls, you can see woodpeckers and nuthatches and all those other like winter sparrows that are coming through right now. And the trails are just absolutely gorgeous, even in the winter. The Lakeshore Nature Preserve, this is near Picnic Point, near the UW campus, and University Bay is also a fantastic place to be aware of. Something about University Bay really draws in lots of waterfowl and lots of swans. So this is a good spot to be paying attention to, because you can get really, really great looks at all the waterfowl that gather in the bay. So as you walk along Picnic Point, you can get nice and kind of close views at them. The water doesn't freeze over here in this little bay until very, very late in the year, which means that there's usually a lot of activity on it up through the very coldest parts of winter. And then another fun destination that I put on here is Indian Lake County Park, which is a spot that has a bunch of trails through the woods. It also has some nice open water where you can get a mix of woodland birds and also waterfowl. If you are looking for still more destinations, I highly recommend you check out the Great Wisconsin Birding and Nature Trail. This is designed as like an auto tour type trail where you can hit up a bunch of different destinations on your trip. So I've put a link here to that, but you can see just from looking at this map that there are 50 some, if not more, places that are fantastic places for birding. They have them organized by county, so you can, and it's super, super helpful for planning a trip. They give you an idea of what you can expect to find and a good route to take as you're looking to get out there birding. So highly recommend you check out the Great Wisconsin Birding and Nature Trail. And you can click on those links in this copy of the PDF that I've sent. eBird also has really great ways to explore where to go. There's a hotspot explorer that will show you all the different birding hotspots in your area, as well as what people are finding there. So if you want to be like, oh, do I want to make that 45-minute drive to this place? I have no idea what people have seen there lately. eBird will tell you what people are seeing there. So you're like, oh man, there's a lot of different variety of ducks there. Maybe I will go. So it's kind of a cool judge that can help you save you some time in the process. Okay, that's it. We've reached the end. That was a lot of information that I threw at you guys, but I hope, really hope that it gave you a great idea of the huge variety that you can see in our region during the fall and winter, that it makes you feel a little bit more prepared to get out there birding, and gives you some ideas of where you might start as you're heading out. So at this point, I think I'm going to turn to the chat box and see what questions people have put in here. So give me 1 second while I scroll back through here to see what questions we have. All right, Susan is asking, is there a particular type of seed the evening finches prefer? Yes, there is. And luckily, they all really enjoy the same kind of seed. So black oil sunflower seeds are a crowd favorite when it comes to winter finches. I would recommend having black oil sunflower seeds and maybe some thistle. Thistle seed is really great for pine siskins and for common redpolls. Their bills are a little bit smaller than that of the evening grosbeaks. And so they're not able to break open the seeds. So if you have hulled sunflower seeds, that's a really great draw for them as well. But they also really enjoy thistle. So thistle and black oil sunflower seeds are going to make all of the winter finches very, very happy. So you don't need anything complicated. You don't need a fancy mix. You don't need anything with nuts or berries or anything like that. They like the sunflower seeds a lot. And they will eat you out of house and home. They're people that have that are seeing pine siskins come through, they will just devour bird seed. So be careful. Let's see. Are there suggestions for best places to view crane staging? I would say up in the Baraboo region, if you want to make a trip, up in the Baraboo region, near the Aldo Leopold Shack, over in that area are a bunch of really great spots for viewing cranes. Crex Meadows, which is a little bit further of a drive, and that was the where that picture that I showed you for the Sandhill Cranes, that's where that was taken. That's a state natural area, but it's a little further away from town. Goose Pond is half an hour from here. It's up in Columbia County. Lots of cranes coming in at night. Even if you are just kind of driving around in the region over near Spring Green, if you drive out kind of west of town, chances are you might see a lot of them come in at night. But if you want a spot to go and be like sitting somewhere as they come in, I would recommend Goose Pond as like a pretty safe bet. I know there's been a lot of crane activity there in the evenings when they fly in at night. I've seen some awesome pictures. So, all right. Let's see here. What else do we have? Let's see. I'm looking at your, let's see, a question about a bird that was on your deck. It looked like a dull colored female goldfinch, olive, light gray, soft white tones, a tiny orange red line, the upper base of its beak. I am not sure what bird that is. I'll have to give that some thought, but if I do think about that more, I'll see if I can follow up with you about what that might be. But off the top of my head right now, I'm not thinking of an answer for that, but I will mull that over for sure. Let's see, best time of day and place to see owls. I tend to see owls almost any time of day if you find them, if you happen to stumble across them where they're roosting somewhere and they're sitting up in a tree. But I would say dusk, not like early afternoon, like starting around like 2 or 3 p.m. through like 4 o'clock-ish, but right before it starts to get dark, is a really good time to be looking for owls. And I would just go to wooded areas. Doesn't have to be conifer trees, like even deciduous areas. If you head out to any conservation park or the Arboretum in the late afternoon, you might hear them that start to hoot around that particular time, or they might be perching out somewhere as they kind of prepare to hunt for the evening. The trick for finding owls, well, there isn't really a trick, but you have to be patient and you have to look very carefully. As you're scanning the tree branches, look for anything that looks like a weird branch or like a weird like stump that could be just like a strange shape up in the branches. Always give it a second look. Owls blend in remarkably well. But you want to be looking for anything that feels like slightly off up in the branches. So I'll just scan very carefully. It's a good idea to find a spot where you can almost see them silhouetted, because their silhouettes will stand out so well. Okay, can you recommend places for folks to see tundra birds like snow buntings, longspurs, snowy owls? Yes. I would say if you were looking for snow buntings or Lapland longspurs or horned larks, and snowy owls, you should be driving country roads in the winter. When I go looking for these birds, I head north of town, up north of Waunakee, actually. So up kind of near, what's a good street? Like Fisher Road and Meffert Road, and Kingsbury. There's Kingsford Road or something. I'm forgetting the name of the roads, but north of Waunakee, off of K, just driving all of those country roads north of Waunakee is a really good spot for some reason to find Lapland longspurs and snow buntings. They will gather in flocks along the side of country roads, and they'll kind of eat some of the grit that's along the edge of the roads. So when you're driving up there, and you should be careful to make sure you're in a spot where there's not a ton of traffic, and that you're being conscious of cars that might be behind you. But go slow, and just look for birds that you might see along the edge of the road. They will usually be in flocks, and so you might want to pull over and see if you can get a good look at what they are. Snowy owls are going to be out in that same type of habitat, out in agricultural areas where they have wide open spaces. As a bird that lives up in the tundra, they're looking for a similar tundra-like habitat. And so when you're out at a spot that has that wide open space, that's going to be what they're drawn to. Up near Goose Pond in the Arlington area is where we've had snowy owls show up in past years. So driving along up near Goose Pond, along, I forget the names of all the roads up here, County Road K up near Leeds, Badger Road. There's a bunch of roads up there that you can just kind of work your way around as you look for owls. And that would be another good spot to be looking for. Also snow buntings and Lapland longspurs and horned larks. And while you're out there, northern harriers and rough-legged hawks. Out country road birding can be surprisingly exciting, even though it sounds like it could be boring. There's really a lot you can see out in the country in those wide open spaces. That's where those Arctic birds do. They like that habitat, and they do a lot out there. Okay, let's see if there's any other questions. Someone's asking, I saw a large bird early in the evening in my neighborhood, dark on top and back, white and light stomach, looked large enough to be an eagle or a large hawk. Any idea what it could be? Dark on top and back. I'm guessing if eagles would be huge and very unlikely to be in your backyard. So my first thought would be this is probably a red-tailed hawk, or it's a Cooper's hawk. But if it was fairly large, I'm guessing it was a red-tail. Their plumage patterns could be very different depending on each bird. But if you did notice some sort of like band of light spotting across the belly of the bird, that would be a good marker for a red-tailed hawk. They have what's called a belly band, and it's usually some like pale markings or spotted markings that cover across their belly. So their fronts are usually white, but they might have those markings on there. So my first thought would be that it's probably a red-tailed hawk. If it seemed smaller than your average hawk, it would probably be a Cooper's hawk. But I would be really surprised if it was something like an eagle, because that's not usually a backyard bird. Someone else is asking, what do you think of Pheasant Branch Conservancy? I love Pheasant Branch Conservancy. It's a phenomenal place to go birding. There's so many awesome birds that you can find out there. So I definitely recommend walking along there. The oak savanna on that hill is a really nice spot to see birds. Anywhere along the trails and the woods there are really great places. So that's another spot. I thought about putting that on the list of recommended places to go birding in Dane County, but I couldn't fit it on the slide. So definitely recommend Pheasant Branch. I think I have covered everybody's questions. So if anyone has anything else, feel free. But I'll check in with Liz and see how we're doing. Time.
I think we're good. We'll give maybe just another couple seconds if there's any final questions for Caitlyn. Caitlyn, this was awesome and a whole lot of information. So thank you for all that.
Yeah. It was probably more than you feel like you might need, but you do have the PDF if you want to look through this and kind of study up on what birds you might find. And the links on here are all clickable, so you can for each of the the locations, the links they'll take you straight to Google Maps, so you can figure out where you'd like to go, and get directions to go straight there. And if you do have follow-up questions, and you want to reach out to me and for whatever reason or need something clarified, my email address is in here as well. So feel free to reach out to me at Madison Audubon. I see someone in the chat is saying that they don't see the PDF. If you scroll all the way to the top of the group chat, there should be a PDF that says Fall and Winter Birding, and you can download it from there. It's kind of large just because there's a lot of photos in this file, but that should work for you. But I want to thank you all.
Yeah, I'll share it once more too, in the chat. And if anybody just wants to shoot an email to the library, I'm happy to email you a copy as well.
Great. Well, thank you all for coming tonight. I hope that you learned something new about birds and that you get out there birding this winter.
All right, awesome. Thank you so much, Caitlin, and thank you everyone for joining us. Have a great evening.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.